strategies. And I am Shannon Edgett. I call myself a mindset maven because I specialize with all of those mindset blocks that stop us from succeeding in our lives and in our businesses. And it's amazing the things that we can do when we remove just one little thing, just pulling out one belief, one block, one subconscious thought that stops us, how much other things will open up for us. Which is why I wanted to talk about success sabotage today. It's actually kind of surprising. You are striving to achieve something, you are building yourself a business, you are working really hard. Why would you sabotage that? But when we are working, often we have a fear of success. Again, sounds counterintuitive, but what you're actually afraid of are the consequences of what might be. We often daydream and think about what we want to create and build. We focus on the things that we will have as positives. But there's always two sides to the coin, and your mind knows this. Your mind has lots of storehoused memories and ideas and concepts, and it still taps into that. So it will go ahead and sabotage you. Now, your sabotage, the parts of the subconscious mind that are doing this, are rooted in anxiety. They're looking at the fears of what if, all those unknowns. But it's drawing on its prior experience of life, all the things from our background. It's afraid of potential change. What might be happening down the road? How is my time, my energy, my money, how is all this going to be affected by the success I'm trying to build for myself? Sometimes it's afraid of the what ifs in the bigger roles that you might be taking on. You know, we end up succeeding, and then all of a sudden we have more responsibility. We have more things we need to do. Perhaps we have staff, we have more people we have to look after. We're getting more attention. We become more vulnerable because there's more eyes on us. You know, all of a sudden there's all this other stuff happening. So all of a sudden it's not as appealing, and our subconscious might be like, whoa, let's slow down. Or we become afraid of what we might feel we have to leave behind in order to have the success that we're imagining for ourselves. So there's all sorts of reasons that the subconscious mind says, we're not okay with what you're setting out for yourself. We'll let you think you're aiming for this, but we're going to shut it down behind the scenes. So if you constantly feel like you're making progress and it stops, or you're starting to figure something out and then you're thrown a curveball, chances are you're dealing with some form of success sabotage. So I'm going to do a quick check-in and have a look to make sure I'm set up well, and we will get right into it. So I'm going to start by giving you some signs. How do you know if you are sabotaging yourself? If it's dealing with the subconscious mind and it's doing it behind the scenes, how can you recognize it? Well, the first one would be, let's look at the kinds of goals you're setting for yourself. How high do you set the bar? Do you set the bar really low? Are you making all these tiny little goals, little itsy-weetsy steps? Great, you're achieving things. But if you're only doing one little fraction at a time, how fast are you going? How far are you going? If big grand goals are too scary for you, then you are trying to keep yourself small. You're playing it safe, and you are sabotaging what could be. You're limiting your potential. Now, it's important to have small steps and small goals, because lots of steps bring you to your destination. But if you're taking teeny tiny baby steps, you're not pushing yourself. You're not actually aiming. You might even be like doing some loops before you take a step forward. So examine if you're setting short, small goals for yourself. If you're setting that bar really low, that's a sign that you might be sabotaging. the flip side of that is also true. You're setting too many goals, too high goals, things that are unreachable, or they're reachable but with only a lot of hard work and effort. So if you're creating these huge lofty goals for yourselves and you're expecting results, you're expecting to jump through hoops and achieve those things when they're not realistic, you're creating a situation of overwhelm for yourself. You're creating something that isn't obtainable, which gives you an excuse to quit or shut down or backpedal a bit or say it's too hard and it's not for you. So you have both sides of this. You're setting too small goals or too big goals. It's a sign of sabotage. Another great one is procrastination. When we put things off, we're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, but today's not a good day. I'm going to do that next week. Next week is here, but you know what? This other thing came up. I'm going to put that off again. When we keep putting something off, we're avoiding it, which means we're never taking any action, which means we're never going to start the journey to get to where we need to go. So if you're a constant procrastinator, which believe me, I'm very familiar with, it's a really big sign that there's something here you're afraid of and that you're avoiding. So ask, what is it you're afraid of? What are you avoiding? We'll get more into that later. Another piece of that is being easily distracted, which I'm someone who has ADHD, so easily distracted is a very common theme for me. But on the flip side, one of the things with people with ADHD is they have the ability to hyperfixate and hyperfocus. So if I'm really into what it is that I'm doing, distraction isn't an issue. If you are distracted by something, it means that you're not completely committed, that you're not all in to the topic. So you have to assess, what is it that's distracting me? Is it my own thoughts? Is it an excuse to pay attention to things outside of myself? What is happening here? Another is the sign that you're constantly refocusing your priorities. So it's important to have flexibility. It's important to be able to pivot as you go along. But if you're constantly pivoting, it's kind of like procrastination. You're never actually getting anything done. Okay, this is really important for me. This is my goal. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm not going to finish this. This is actually now really, really important. So we're focusing on this. I'm going to focus and do it and get it done. You know what? This isn't important as much as this is important. So I'm going to do this new thing and we're going to focus on this and go here. And maybe I don't need to go back to that first thing again. That's the first building block. I need to start there. And if you're constantly bouncing back and forth, you're resetting, you're restarting, you're not actually getting anywhere. You're not actually taking action and you're not accomplishing. So it's a phenomenal way to look like you're busy and you're doing, but you're not achieving and you're sabotaging. The last one, which is often a familiar one for people, is the state of perfectionism. We want to deliver good products. We want to show people something that is of quality, that demonstrates that we know what we're doing, that it's perfect presentation, perfect documentation, like everything, all our ducks are in a row. And while we can have a really good product and have something that is of quality, if we spend all our time trying to dot our I's and cross our T's and make everything packaged up nicely, we're not spending any time actually testing. So we don't even know if whatever it is that we're using and doing is effective. We don't know if it's actually what people need. We have very little information to base that it's the final product. So we're going to continue researching. We're going to continue investigating. We're going to continue looking how to make this thing perfect without actually doing anything, without actually putting it out there into the world. So it ties very well in with perfectionism and procrastination. They're like best friends. It's a way that you're never going to actually put yourself out there because you're so busy making sure everything's polished and perfect. So these signs, setting the bar low, setting it too high, procrastinating, being easily distracted, constantly refocusing, and perfectionism are huge indicators that you are sabotaging yourself. You use all of these things to slow yourself down so that you never arrive. So you never even get close to arriving. And it's time to call those things out and stop. You deserve to succeed. Now, the feelings that will accompany with success sabotage will often be feelings of anxiety, stress. Oh my God, what am I doing? I can't do this. Anxiety is a pretty commonplace thing in our society. So I'm assuming you're familiar with how that feels. There will be a lot of pressure. You will constantly feel like you have deadlines or things that you have to do and achieve and constantly be working towards. There's this pressure to get it done, to do it now. Ooh, meet these expectations, please this person. It's always there. You have this feeling that nothing is enough. And guilt will often come in when you're in that state of success sabotage. One, you're feeling guilty about succeeding. Oh, I have these things I want to do and all these things I want to achieve, but I feel bad about it. Like, oh, I might not, I might have to leave this person behind, or I might do better than that person. Or on the flip side of that, you might feel guilty for not succeeding. Oh, I'm letting this person down, or, I'm not being a good example of, or so these are 3 common emotions and feelings that will show up for you if you're in a state of success sabotage: anxiety, pressure, and guilt. Now, what do we do with all this? How do we go about kicking success sabotage to the curb? Because we all deserve to win. We deserve to make progress and know that we're operating to our final destination of business success. And the key, in my opinion, is to first identify, get clear. What is happening? Why are we afraid? Why are we stopping ourselves? So I want you to identify first, above all things, what is success to you? Define what is success. What does that look like? What does that feel like for you? To one person, success might be buying all these wonderful things, a nice house, a boat, being able to take vacations and trips. That might be their definition of success. To another person, success might be working 5 hours a week and spending the rest of the time with their children homeschooling, or cooking all the meals for their family because that's stuff they love to do. Success can be defined very differently from one person to the next. What is the thing that looks like success for you? How do you know you're achieving it and working on it? If you've never sat down and defined what success is for you, do it now. It's one of those things that will help you understand if you're hitting your mile markers. So get clear. Success to me is, and fill that in. Now, I want to remind you, you may know this, you might not. How someone else defines success has nothing to do with you. You might look at someone else's definition of success and be like, that's awesome, I like that. But check in, do you want it? Lots of people like to compare. This person's going for this, so that's what I have to do. Pull yourself back and go, what is my definition? Get clear on that. I'm beating a dead horse, so we'll move on. So once you've started to identify what your definition of success is, you can start to look at the other side of this. Look at why you might not want that. What might be stopping you from it? What makes you anxious about it? You can recognize your possible fears and ask yourself, what scares me about success? Let that sink in. Sit with it for a minute. What scares me about success? Some people will say nothing. Nothing scares me. But think about all the things you'll have to do with your definition of success. Think about all the feelings you're going to have emotionally. Think about the way your time is being used. If your mind says success looks like this, what are the other pieces of that? How do you get to that? What do you feel like you have to do in order to achieve it? Time, energy, and money. It's like a little triangle Venn diagram that gets thrown around. And there's a common belief that if you have time and energy, you can't have money. If you have energy and money, you can't have time. And if you have money and time, you can't have energy. That gets thrown around quite a bit. You can have all of those things, but you have to prioritize what's important and then examine, what am I afraid is going to cost me in order to have that? What's the exchange going? And this is where your fears start to pop in. Oh, I might have to lose all my friends. I won't have any free time for them. I really love my friends. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to keep myself from achieving so that I can spend time with my friends. This is all background stuff. Examine, get clear, ask yourself those questions. What scares me about success? What am I afraid it will look like? What am I afraid will happen if I get it? Now, I'm going to give you a few examples of common fears around success. One, being in the spotlight. Being in the spotlight, all of a sudden you have all these eyes on you, staring at you, looking at you, going, this person's got money. They know what they're doing. They might see you as the expert. They might see you as someone they want to be like. They might see you as someone they want to do business with. All of a sudden, these people are staring at you. How do you feel about that? A lot of people don't like having the attention on them. And if that's you, that's probably a good place to start. Another one is fear of judgment. A lot of us hate to hear unkind things said about us. We hate to be ridiculed. Rejection is a real thing, and I think I talked about that prior in this group. The fear of rejection. Being rejected has some of the same neurological pathways as our pain receptors. So it hurts us physically. We feel real pain. So if we're afraid we're going to be rejected, we're going to do a lot to make sure that we don't have that experience, and we slow that down. If you're afraid of being rejected, that might also be a really good place to start. Being ridiculed, being made fun of, having someone troll you, if that's a nightmare to you, this might be what's stopping you from achieving what you're trying to do. Another really big one is imposter syndrome. You may have heard this word before. Imposter syndrome is when you doubt in your own ability and you can't understand why people would look up to you, why people would see you as a leader. Whatever form that you're presenting yourself in the world, imposter syndrome makes you question your authority to be in that place that you're in. There's lots of amazing people that have done incredible things in the world that felt like imposters. So you're not alone. But if you feel like you don't deserve the attention, the success, that there's nothing within you that can achieve, you might actually sabotage yourself from achieving anything at all. If you don't feel like you're going to be good enough, you might hold yourself back from even trying. And another really common one that stops a lot of people is the fear of who you might become. We get these ideas about what success is, what that looks like for us. But if you pull yourself back for a minute and you answer this question, you might learn something. Successful people look like, successful people have this personality. Successful people are. And how did you answer that question? To some, successful people are generous and thoughtful. To others, they're two-faced and shallow. How do you define a successful person? And if you don't like that definition, you're not going to allow yourself to become that kind of person. You want to be you. You want to be appreciated. You want to be someone who does the things that you currently do in the world. With more money and attention and fame, of course. But if you don't like how you define successful people, if you don't like how you define rich people, you're going to stop yourself from becoming one of those kinds of people. If you're afraid that you're going to turn into an asshole if you get a whole bunch of money, sorry for swearing, you're not going to allow it to happen. So those are 4 really common things that stop people from even wanting to achieve their success. And they subconsciously will start sabotaging. With all of that said, the next part, after you've identified where it is the stuff is coming up for you, if you can start to understand what the fears are and where they came from, that can make a huge difference in how you move forward beyond it. Spoiler alert, a lot of the time, the stuff comes from our childhood. It's a cliche in therapy for a reason, because a lot of our experiences from when we were growing up shape who we are as adults and how we interact with the world. You could have been made fun of in grade 3 for something you were really excited to present with a class. You could have done really poorly on something you thought you were going to do well. There's all sorts of things that set us up in school, with our families, with our peers, that make us go, this is how the world works, these are the rules that apply, and this is how I have to live the rest of my life. I'll give you a more specific example of how this stuff can program and condition us. When I was, I'm going to say 8 or 9, I had a best friend, and we loved to play together. One day during the summer, I biked over to her house, small town, many years ago. We could do that kind of thing as kids. And I was excited to play with her, and I had news. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I won some sort of contest. I think it was a coloring contest or something like that, and I was excited and I was proud that I had been the winner. Well, she had her British grandmother coming to stay, and her grandmother was the one who met me at the door. And she says, "Oh, you have quite the smile on your face." And I told her I had won the contest. Now, I don't know where you're from or what kind of experience you have with people who are from Britain, especially from that generation, but being proud and boastful is a really big faux pas. And she started to shut me down. "Oh, you think you're some special, do you? Oh, you think that you are such a bright, shining star for winning a contest." And all of a sudden, I became really self-conscious. I won something, but I can't talk about it. I'm not allowed to share a victory, or I'm going to be mocked and made fun of. I didn't realize in that moment that I created that belief, that I internalized that. But in that moment, that's what happened. This woman who I respected, my elders, who, had say above all other things, was shutting me down. This is a new rule for me. I have to operate from this way. And it happens just like that. So when we could start to identify where some of these come from, it gives us the ability to look at that moment and go, that's not a rule I want to be ruling and guiding me anymore. That specific woman, as much as I admired and respected her, I chose to no longer live in my head. She doesn't get to decide whether or not I get to talk about my successes and if I need to hide them. And it freed me quite a bit when I made that decision for myself. So if you can take the time to start looking at where some of this stuff is coming from, you can start pulling it apart. And you could start deciding for yourself if those kinds of thoughts and beliefs are going to be the things that set the tone for your success. Now, lost my spot with my notes. Another important thing to look at is, how have you been treated in the past when you were successful? So like I gave with my example, I was proud that I won a contest. I had a success and achievement, and I was shut down. Look at all those pieces and all those times where you did something that you were proud of your achievement, and how were you treated? From the people you loved, from your peers, from strangers. What kinds of things were said when you did something? What kinds of things were said when someone else did something of success? What were the comments when someone won a victory on the Olympics? Oh, they worked so hard, and they won a medal, whoop-de-doo. What were the comments thrown around in the household when looking at someone else's way of achieving? We internalize all that stuff. What about when someone failed? What about when you failed? What were the things said? When we look at all these different aspects and assets, that will tell us where these encouragements or discouragements are stemmed from. And we can start to see what's showing up for us and how that unfolds for us individually. Let me ask you, after you heard all of this so far, what kind of strategies are you using to avoid success? And if you're not sure yet, that's okay. We have more. I'm going to give you a few examples of how we all avoid success. How are you at taking compliments? You did a great job. I'm so proud of this. What a wonderful thing you did. Can you just say thank you? Or do you need to defer it? Do you need to push it away and be like, oh, it wasn't that big a deal? Or Johnny put the presentation together. I just did the writing. Do you push it all down and squash it away? You're not allowing yourself to earn your achievement and be lauded for it. Are you hanging out with people who really have no goals or ambitions? It's not completely true, but I'm sure you've heard the statement that you are the average of the sum of 6 people you spend most of your time with. Again, there's a lot of layers that contribute to that statement, but there is an influence. The people you surround yourself with, if they're mediocre, if they're not really ambitious or going anywhere in life, it may show you that you're hanging out with people on that level, so you don't really have to shoot that high. When you surround yourself with high achievers, often it'll influence you to continue going in that direction. But if you're surrounding yourself with people on a low level, you might be doing that so that you look like a high achiever when you do a small task. Or that they'll help claw you down because they don't want to see you soar that high. Without getting into social politics, that's a little summarization. Do you avoid taking challenging projects? Or do you stick with the things that you know you can do? When you choose to do things that you know for sure you can accomplish, how are you growing? When you take on something that might teach you something, that will expand your comfort zone, allowing you to learn a new skill, you're taking on a new opportunity. You're trying out and testing your skill set. And you're allowing yourself to grow into a better version of yourself. But if you're just sticking with what's familiar and known, sure, you might be a good expert in that. But you stay the same. You're staying on that plane of levelness. Do you avoid taking charge? I'll let Philip lead the conversation here. I'll just pipe in every once in a while. Susan, she's got this. She'll tell us what we need to do. I'll support her. If you trust in your own leadership abilities, you get to call the shots. You get to direct. You also get to delegate. If you avoid taking charge, it's again a likely sign that you're avoiding success. So let's look at what you can do to really put this into action. Start with your small steps. We talked about setting small goals, and that can be a sabotage technique, but set achievable stepped goals. So no baby steps, but give yourself things that take you along the way. Pick one thing you can work on. Focus on that one thing. Work on it. Set a plan for it. Make it achievable. When we have way too many things up in the air, that's where we shift our focus. And then we never get any of it done. You know, they talk about when you're learning how to juggle, only have a couple balls in the air. If you start with 20, you're probably not going to figure it out. There's nothing you can set your eyesight on, and you'll drop all of them. Start shifting those old beliefs. I gave you the example of not being able to talk about my achievements. What kind of beliefs came up for you? Decide for yourself if you want that to continue being your truth. or look at digging deeper. If the beliefs are still a foreign concept for you, there's a lot of information out there. It's what I do for a living. There's lots of people who can help you really take a look at yourself. But start doing that looking. And that's where you can start moving your beliefs into something new. Call yourself out on your negative patterns. Hold yourself accountable. You realize you're in a negative spiral? Recognize it. Go, okay, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to stop. Learn how to recalibrate. Learn how to shift yourself into a new way of being. It takes practice and time. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do it like that. Just the fact that you're wanting to is a start in the right direction. Focus on the journey instead of the outcome. Realize all those steps are important. When we're just pivoting on where we want to go and we're not looking at the progress, all we can see is that we're not there yet. But if you stop for a minute and you say, okay, that's my goal, and where am I? And you look at the journey that you've taken, you can actually see how far you've come. I can guarantee you, you've come a long way from where you were 5 years ago. I'm pretty sure you're a completely different person. Sure, you're still that same person, but your personality, the way you interact, how you take things on in the world, I'm pretty sure that's all different. Another really important thing to look at are your boundaries. Your positive, your growth community, all the things that are influencing where you are on your journey. Mostly I'm referring to the people you're surrounding yourself with. If you have people who are demanding of you or who are pulling you down, you want to make sure that you're clear on how you're interacting with them. You're being clear, prioritizing your goals and your needs, and that you're recognizing the things that are influencing that journey, that you're recognizing the things you're saying yes and no to. Your boundaries are how you determine where you prioritize yourself. So don't let other things take that away from you. So to summarize, there's lots of signs that can show you if you're sabotaging yourself. You set the bar too low. You set it way too high. You procrastinate. You get easily distracted. You're constantly refocusing your priorities, and you're focusing on perfectionism. To overcome these limiting beliefs and the things that are sabotaging you and your success, you start by identifying what they are. Get clear. Define success for yourself. Define what's frightening you from wanting to achieve it. Get really focused on where those fears came from and decide if you want to let them go or not. I recommend letting them go. And start taking action. Everything takes time. You're going to work faster than some people and slower than others. Be patient with yourself. Shift those beliefs. And don't be afraid to call yourself out when you're stuck in a pattern.